Hello, and welcome to Kent State Independent Films Cinematic Strategies. I am Samuel Teyssier. I'm the head of organizational outreach at Kent State Independent Films, and today I'm joined by a longtime filmmaker. She's worked on films such as They Live, Prince of Darkness, Starman, 16 Candles, The Outsiders, The Village of the Damned, Ghosts of Mars, and Vampires. She's a producer, multi-talented multimedia creator, and she is Sandy King Carpenter. Thank you very much, Mrs. Carpenter, for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Thank you. And you've done so much work over your years, but today I just want to ask you, what was the last film you've seen to kick us off?
Wow, what have I just seen? I've mostly been burying myself in Norwegian dark television shows. Because they're so creepy and cold and isolated, and a lot of fun that way. You know,
Interesting.
uh, I watch everything. I watch old classics. I watch um, foreign movies and foreign horror. I watch pretty much anything you hand to me. Lately, I've been listening to a lot of audio podcast serials and audio books just to understand that space, because more and more people are hiding there and
Yeah.
getting their stories while they're in their cars or just at night. And I wanted to understand, where are they? What are they listening to? What are they doing?
And that's also great that you're kind of researching that space more because that's something that your business is diving into, right? And you're
Yes.
creating more, like 5 series a year that I read, like every.
Yeah, we're in business with Realm. And in fact, there'll be a big announcement on May 11th. I think it's at 3 p.m. Pacific time, that will talk about that, because they just did a big expansion, and there's lots of cool details. So I don't want to take it away from them, but it's posted all over social media, and it's a real interesting opportunity for us to, in a way, bring back, to really oversimplify it, bring back what used to be really cool in the 30s and 40s about radio suspense and thrillers that people used to all gather around their radios at night and listen to. Well, now everybody's in their own bubble, but they're listening to podcasts for their entertainment and some of their serial shows.
So you're bringing something that you used to love and other generations used to love into a new age, which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, I was after the big radio show
Yeah.
days. But I actually had a friend, one of our costumers was real into old radio shows. And so he would periodically give me cassettes in those old days and go, okay, you got to listen to this. You got to listen to the original Shadow. You got to listen to the old Abbott and Costellos and things that were on the radio. And there is an interesting thing when you really have to focus on the audio elements of what's going on, um, and you don't have the visuals. You're making up the visuals yourself. So it's a different step away from just the book, or being bombarded where we present you with a movie where it's all visual, all audio, all being fed to you. What if you're halfway in between?
And that can be just as effective most of the time, I think, because I listen to podcasts when I run all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and it's perfect for that. And I think it's awesome that you're stepping to that space because it's really blowing off right now. So that's a
Yeah,
great idea.
yeah. Uh,
And
it's fun.
I'm sorry to go
No,
ahead.
and developing those stories, and then kind of going, okay, this is a cool story, but what do we do? We have one right now that we're wrestling with, Where if we go one way, it's got all the great sound effects, but it's not quite as cool a story. And we go the other way, and it really provides, the textures around it that a sound effects guy can go crazy with, that can really immerse the listener more.
Yeah, that's tricky.
Yeah.
There's it's a double-sided coin, and I'm sure it's going to be great both ways. But I'm excited to see what you pick because I'll be there wherever you release it. I'm
Thank
excited.
you. Great.
And one of my other questions is one filmmaker that you used to look up to the most when you were younger and like an inspiring filmmaker, and which of their films was the first one to speak to you?
Well, when I was real young, it was all about Tex Avery cartoons.
Ah,
Um, you know,
wow,
and I started in animation. So, Chuck Jones, who came, out of the Tex Avery school, was, a guy that hung out with my animation teacher. And so it was like really getting really close to guys that had the kind of darker sense of humor, but provided, you know, a way of learning storytelling that wasn't all Bambi. Um, and so it's kind of a joke, but kind of not, that there was some early influence in there with a little bit of twisted humor. Um, I I like, again, I like everything. I just like being told a good story. I was a major fan of Carol Reed, from The Thin Man, and various other, mysterious text. The Third Man. I'm sorry. Um, I never get the titles right. I'll either get the person's name wrong or the title wrong. And I loved The Quiet Man. I loved Howard Hawks movies.
awesome, yeah, and
That
you
gave
went.
me
Oh,
modern movies that hold up.
wow, yeah, those really old, but like they're visual films, like the Hawks films that I'm trying to dive into, and no one really talks about those. I don't think they even show them in like really film schools, really Howard
Oh,
Hawks
then there's
films.
a crappy film school. I mean, I'm sorry. Those had the most modern, independent women lead characters that were fantastic, and he used a great screenwriter, Lee Brackett, a woman. Um, you watch those now, and those are stronger, more independent female icons than you get in a lot of current movies. Now they all have to, they want to give them tragic flaws, so they make them alcoholics, or tragic, post traumatic stress syndrome victims. He was really making them upstanding whole people. And why we ever moved away from some of that is beyond me. Um, but no, everybody should know Hawks. I mean, there's a list of films that I make anyone that goes to work for us watch, and they include all these guys because they're structuralists. They know how to tell a story. Their women aren't simpering idiots, and they're diverse.
Yeah, I'm starting to see that with the ones I have seen, and even if I might not work for you, I'd love to see that list, Mrs. King, because it sounds
Okay.
like there's a lot of great stuff on that list. But after you found your passion for filmmaking, you went to UCLA, and that's what you started to study. And one thing that you worked on there was a Oscar-winning short film, animated short film called Antimatter. So, and what was your role on that short film? Because it, I can't find it to watch it online, but it sounds really interesting from the reviews and other things that I have found. And how did you get involved in that project?
Well, because of my animation class, I was friends with a bunch of other animators, and uh, uh, Louis, Louis and Carlos. They were the two guys that actually put together the film, Antimatter. I was the third wheel. I was they were the producers. I was the inker. And so really the three of us made it. They were the ones that got the Academy Award for it. It was the first animated short to ever win an Academy Award. And uh, we we had all worked on other animated educational films because that was where the money was. We came out of animation school at UCLA together, and they immediately set up shop and got cool gigs. Jay Teitzel was a third guy in their group, and he got the gig designing spaceships for Star Wars. Our buddies that were over at Cal Arts were animating lightsabers for Star Wars. Everybody, every young person that was coming up in animation was working on Star Wars in one way or another. And we were doing like earthquake prediction. My part of that one was a frog going up and it was strange animal behavior. So mine was a frog going up and down in a well bucket going. um, and then we did Antimatter, which was in all of it was we had Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention, and we had all these things going in and out of dimensions. That was used on a college teaching level, and it was full animation. So we were right on that cusp before computer in betweening was taking over at Disney, and a lot of the computerization of things was going on, and we were old school frame by frame animation.
Wow. So, like you said, you were the inker on that project.
Yeah, yeah, I was the anchor on everything. That was my job. And
How long did that take? How long did that project take you three to make? A few months or?
I don't even remember. It seemed like forever.
Wow.
Um, you know, nowadays I was talking to an animation house this week, and they're saying, yeah, at the end of the day, you can wind up with only 10 seconds of film. I said, 10 seconds of film used to take us 2 weeks. I'm not an impatient person.
Yeah, that seems like forever. 10 seconds for 2 weeks, but that's how it was, and it's speeding up now. But it's definitely changing the process. It's evolving from back then.
Well, there's so many cool things going on now at the different animation houses that are bringing in animating manga stories and doing watercolor animation and they're now doing some really cool stop motion that is a whole different has you can get a real creepy vibe off. So it too is becoming a different format for storytelling than it used to be.
Definitely, there's so many different like forms of it. Like I I've started getting to anime since all this COVID stuff, and that's a whole different kettle of animation that the North American audiences are used to. So it's very interesting to see how it's changed. But after you graduated from USC, what was your
Yeah,
plan?
my
Oh,
husband was
oh, no,
USC.
USC,
I was, yeah,
UCLA.
the one time of the year that we can vote against opposing teams.
Yeah, it's very tricky to live in that household. I bet on those days, uh, but did you want to stay in animation since you seemed like you enjoyed it a lot, or did you want to get on an actual film set like as soon as possible after you graduated?
Well, I was working doing both things because I was also working on all my friends' live action films. I came from the world of art, so I was comfortable over in animation. It was something I felt I could make a living doing. I got offered a job over at Disney in character sketch, and they had a really harsh apprenticeship program that really was awesome. I mean, it was the holy grail of what you aspired to if you wanted to go into animation. And you were mentored and by the original great animators, Willie Reitherman and Ube Iwerks, and those guys were still there. But what I realized during my time in animation was that I have a really reclusive personality that could go into the darkness and just wind up feeding the antisocial part of myself. And what I really needed to do was challenge myself a little more and be out with everyone else in the sunshine doing other things. And I had these skills I developed as a photographer and actually through animation as well, understanding screen direction and frame by frame putting films together, that I had a function I could fulfill in live action. So at the last minute, it's kind of like the little girl who's always wanted to be a ballerina and one day decides she's going to be an environmentalist instead of dance. Um, I shocked everyone and turned down the job at Disney and started taking every kind of live action thing I could find, and that's how I wound up, doing shows for Corman and that kind of thing, and accepting every second unit or anything I could find and building up that side of what I do.
Awesome. And one of your first kind of roles on a film set was with Cassavetes, right?
Well, yeah, I've been doing. I went up to. I was doing AFI films. I was doing, anything. But yeah, I did Killing of a Chinese Bookie for John Cassavetes as a
Oh, awesome.
supervisor.
And you were the script supervisor on that
Yeah.
film? Awesome. And you stayed in that position for a while throughout uh, a good roll of films, correct?
Oh yeah, I love that position on a film because again, it utilized the things I knew, the things I understood, matching, screen direction. Um, it's like if you like doing crossword puzzles, it's that kind of job. And it kept me, I love the set, I love the vitality of filmmaking. And at the same time, you're like a liaison between production, shooting, and the editorial staff. So you learn a lot and you're in touch with every aspect of the film.
And is that why you feel like that's a good kind of transition to a producer as well, since you were kind of you had your hands in like a lot of the aspects of production. So it's not like you were just stuck to production. You were kind of in a lot of the roles as a script supervisor.
Well, it's real informative. I don't feel like any step I took in my schooling or the jobs I took in life was a dead end. They all opened other doors. And, I think that people that just come out of film school and decide they're going to produce movies are making a big mistake because they have no idea what all the departments are going through or what all the components are that go together at the end of the day. Anyone that works for me works at least a week in every department as a PA working for those departments. So they understand when wardrobe comes to you and says they have a problem with their trailer or that the washing machine broke, they understand that's a crisis. It's not just something you forget to tell me. And it makes it so that production has to be responsive. We're only there to support the film crew who is supporting the vision of the director. Producer is not a power position, producer is a service position. And you learn that if you serve and work your way up. It's a valuable lesson.
Yeah, definitely. It puts everything into perspective. It seems like how you came into the like you like grew into the role. You just didn't start as a producer, so it really helped you understand everything that was going on. So
Yes.
I think that's very helpful to everyone who wants to be a producer. That's a good thing to know, and I think it made you more successful as a producer from that.
Definitely, definitely. I, again, it's that star syndrome. It's like, so why do you want to be a producer? Give me the why. It's like when people decide they want to make a certain kind of movie, and you go, okay, why? What's the story you're trying to tell? What's the story underneath it? Why do you want to be a producer? Why do you want to be a director? Maybe you're more suited to being a GP. Maybe you're more suited to be another position, but you don't know unless you work your way up and suddenly go, it's really cool. I want to be a prop man. Maybe I want to go into set decorating. There's all these great professions within our business that a lot of film students never give themselves a chance to explore. And that's a shame.
Yeah, definitely. They're all interesting. You just have to find your niche.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we were talking about before we went public, I saw recently The Ghost of Mars, and that film is very interesting from a production standpoint. And as you were the producer on the film, like the sets are huge. That film was like not a struggle, but was it difficult to put all the pieces together? Just how much you needed for all that?
You paint 55 acres of the New Mexican desert with beet juice. Um, it's, the challenge was how do we get a 360-degree set that's all photographable and believable, that we can immerse ourselves in, do action scenes in. Um, and I'm sorry, you okay there? We, we have dog treats have been delivered. It's all a day in the life. And now someone's going to be going crazy if I don't help them out here.
Yeah, you're good.
So, yeah, the logistics are, how do you film someplace that's isolated enough, that gives you enough throw, that lets you believe you're on the red planet? If you watch The Martian, they had to go to Jordan to get that much space that's a red planet with nobody in their way, to the Wadi Desert. We didn't quite have the Martian's budget, so we wound up on the Zia Pueblo in New Mexico. And like I said, we painted the world's purest gypsum mine with biodegradable beet juice, and had to guarantee we'd return it to its pristine condition. And that's the kind of thing that keeps you up at night when you go, how many pink plaster flamingos am I going to be buying out of this white gypsum if I can't make this go back to how it looked? Because we've just promised this will come out.
Yeah, that's insane to think of, because I didn't know that you had to paint. How many acres was it?
55 acres.
55. Oh my gosh.
55 acres of white gypsum we painted with biodegradable beet juice, and then prayed for rain.
And you got it, right?
Yeah, no, it worked. It worked, but damn, those are the kinds of things that keep you up at night. And when the studio wants you to shoot at a certain time of year, and you explain, yeah, but that's monsoon season in New Mexico. We're going to get flooded, and there's New Mexico has the highest per capita rate of deaths from lightning strikes. And you kind of go, this is not, we had already done vampires there and gone through the monsoon season and the lightning strikes. Seriously, generators attract lightning. This is, not okay. Here we go. So we were back in the mud and the lightning strikes and those things. So there's challenges.
Yeah. And you learn from vampires, like you said, you didn't want to repeat it, but you had to, right?
No choice, man. It's your master's voice. So you just go, this is when you're doing it. And you go, oh man, okay. And you find different ways. You're hooking into the local weatherman who's tracking you on radar, who's got us on cell phone connections. It's headed your way. I mean, we had everything going.
And for Ghosts of Mars and all of your films that you're a producer on, are you a like an on-set producer? Do you like being
Yeah.
on set every day, Mrs. Carpenter?
Well, yeah. So I'm in the office early in the morning for whatever's about ready to not go well. And then if it's a night shoot, I'm in the second half of a construction trailer on set, asleep in case something goes bad there. Now I am on the set because that's where you're needed. When we were on the earlier movies where Larry Franco was producing and I was script supervising and associate producing, we were all three there all the time. And then we could handle each problem as it came up instead of waiting for someone to drive in from the office and then call in and figure something else out. If you're there, you're attentive to what's really going on.
Yeah, I think that probably stems back to your earlier work in production too. You like being on set and you like being hands-on.
Well,
And
it's just practical. You don't need to layer it up with a bunch of other kind of fake positions. If you're doing your job, you're there and you're attending to it all. You're not out somewhere.
yeah, I admire that too because there's like just doing my research, there's some producers nowadays that don't want to travel to be on set, and I admire that you you like to. You don't even just like you want to be on set and you want to see what's going on and
Well,
being
yeah, you
hands
don't
on.
like making movies. Don't make movies.
Exactly.
Another profession.
One of your sayings that you're known for is no whining. Uh, you like what made you such a strong supporter of this motto? Is it just your long history as a producer? Uh, Say
Well, one of the jokes was, for the most part, particularly longer ago, the crews were basically men
okay.
because we did a lot of rough uh, locations, that kind of thing. Blew a lot of things up, sprayed a lot of blood, and the other thing was just, problems are just there to be solved. Doesn't do any good to just say how bad it is and how rough it is. Um, Come in, spit it out, say what the problem is. Because my other thing is when we have a big speech and it's new people on the crew that we haven't worked with before, which is, if you have a problem, don't go out behind the trucks and throw up alone. Tell me, and we'll all go out behind the trucks and throw up together. Then we'll solve it. But you can't just bury a small problem and think it isn't going to get bigger. So the idea is just, okay, so this went to shit on you. These things happen. Or you made a mistake. Oh, horrors. I make mistakes every movie, every day. That's not a firing offense. What is if you try and cover it up, blame someone else, or lie about it, then you're going to get your ass kicked. But outside of that, no, we just go in and go, oh, okay. Well, let me figure out how we break the news to John, whether it's the footage is lost from FedEx or something else has happened at the lab or whatever. It's bad news, but nobody died. We're not neurosurgeons. This is not, we're not curing cancer, we're making entertainment. So now let's put it in perspective, get a solution here and move on.
Exactly.
Exactly. So communicate.
Yeah.
As much as
possible.
And like one of the big horror studios today is Blumhouse, and they've seen a lot of success making films on like $2 million budgets and very small budgets. And why do you think not more? Why do you think not more studios are trying to follow that model today?
It's not all jerks.
Okay.
You need to pay people. You need to have safe conditions, and you hear about the Blumhouse successes. You don't hear about the debris left behind.
Okay.
So every once in a while they hit it. It works. The Halloween movies are working and great. You have people like David Gordon Green that rise, and it works really well. More power to them. It's not a great environment for most people because in my opinion, the goal should be it's all friendly. We're all in it for the same purpose, and the idea is that we respect the audience. Now, I have found that Jason Blum actually digs horror movies and has a great sense of entertainment. He does himself. I'm not necessarily convinced as it goes further down the food chain that applies, and that's just my opinion. And everybody has different opinions. God bless anybody who wants to get their start there. That's fine. Like I said, I'm really happy for David Gordon Green, and that one is just really panned out.
Yeah.
And like I said, Jason has a really good eye for what's going to work. But the early Blumhouse myth, where you go there, they give you $1 million, make what you want. A lot of those movies never got out because they couldn't survive it. I would rather see if I ruled the world, I'd be trying to find who really had the goods, who really had the great story, and give them enough money to make that film soon. But I think that's why you don't see a lot of producers just all trying to clone the Jason Blum formula. Jason Blum's a one of a kind. He can make it work, and he can find the diamond.
Yeah, it seems like a risky model, but it seems like from what the public knows, it pans out more than it doesn't. But it may not, because like you said, there is some of those films that you just never hear about that they make because they just don't pan out. And it seems like a gamble. Who knows the odds?
I think he's changed. He's been around a long time now. So he's diversified. He has different deals. He has different ways of doing things. And he has an eye. That's it. I don't sell him short. He knows how to do it, and he knows what works. There's just a kind of a rough environment when you head over to Blumhouse TV and some of the other offshoots and some of the other deals that I just don't dig. That's just me. I'm sure that there are a whole lot of people that will tell you get in there if you can. As far as there are some people who have an eye for how to get it done. I'm not sure anybody else can be Jason Blum. He's got Ryan Turek there. Ryan Turek is the ultimate fan. loves all things horror, always has from when he was a journalist. Don't sell that short. That's an asset.
Awesome.
So, you know, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And something else, you mentioned diversify in your last statement. Storm King production is also very diverse. Like in 2012, you started creating comics and you entered the comic space. So, what entered you and your whole creative team to try to dive into that whole space and produce and publish your own works instead of just going to another publisher and trying to make your own titles for them?
People have been after John for years to put his name on comic books, and it's usually just because they were bad comics and they wanted to use his name as well. And I originally talked to a couple of big publishers about doing a comic we had an idea for. But I think they all just thought, oh, look, it's the movie people. And there was a real sneering attitude about it.
Wow.
Oh, celebrity wants to do a comic. And that got real boring. And then they all wanted to become movie studios. And I said, look, I know how to make a movie. What I'm looking at is how do we publish a comic? And finally, it was just so annoying when one company tried to get me to get a studio to pay $50,000 to do an ash can for Comic-Con. I said, okay, so are you saying this stuff because I'm a girl or because you think I'm a stupid movie person? Yeah, neither's going to work. So I decided, well, figured out how to make a comic. I guess I can figure out how to publish one. And so it just came about that way, and it was really meant to just do a cool comic for the hell of it, because John's fans are in gaming, comics, and all of that. And it worked. And we got awards. And if you give me an award, I become like a vampire. I want more. I thought I didn't care about awards till I got one. So it was fun. It was actually a great experience. So that grew into starting the anthology of Tales for Halloween Night. And then that grew into, now we've got Night Terrors, and now we've got the kids' comic line, Storm Kids.
Awesome. And I'm sure the awards isn't the only thing you're attracted to. It just means that you're good at something. That's what awards mean.
Nice.
Yeah, it's nice to have something shiny, but that also means that people think what you did is good and they want you to make more. And you follow that. You just didn't do a one-off, which is great. And you're still creating them, right?
Oh, yeah. No, there's Tales of Science Fiction comes out every month. The Halloween Tales for Halloween Night comes out yearly. The Storm Kids comes out, whenever I think we've found a good book. And so we now have comics going from age 4 up. And I'm still feeling the waters with the kids comics, but they seem to be hitting the mark. Little kids are digging them. So I just like it because we kind of do the stories that interest us, and if people like it, cool. Again, if not, I'm sorry that you blew $4 on a comic, but I didn't murder your mother.
You did not. And in my mind, there's some similarities between your role as the president of Storm King Comics and film production. Like, what do you think there are any in those two roles that you have had?
Yeah.
Such as, what do you think?
Well, they're a lot the same function. I put together the teams. I bring stuff to John and say, what do you think? Am I delusional? Is this cool or not? Do you want your name on this, or should I just pretend, Daffy Duck made it? We communicate constantly, and the idea is, you know, John Carpenter has a brand. Fans trust us that the entertainment's going to be good. They may like some stories more than others. They may like some movies more than others, but they know we care about them. They know that they're going to see a good quality story with, if it's a movie, great actors, great effects, cool stuff. Uh, they're not going to have wasted their money. If they pick up one of our comics, they're going to be taken somewhere else. They're going to see great art with great writers. I bring the writers in from novelists, comics, and movies, and try and show them a different time than they might get somewhere else.
Yeah, that's awesome. It just seems like you're bringing the quality that you did in your film production,
Mm-hmm.
like life, into a new medium, which is awesome for all of your fans, including me. So thank you for continuing that. And also continuing with that into a new medium, like you said earlier, you're creating the John Carpenter Presents banner for your like podcast, audio stories now. So was that something you've been thinking about for a while to partner with? Is it Serial Box, the
Well,
production
Cereal
company?
Box has now become Realm.
Oh, okay.
That's they've re-identified, and I've been thinking about different writers we work with kept saying, "Have you ever thought about podcasts?" And I said, "No." Yeah, I got enough going, and they go, "You really should think about podcasts." And then our agents came to me with the people from then Cereal Box and said, "Why don't you just meet with them and see what it is they do?" And then that always sends me on a journey of, okay, what's really going on? What am I ignoring? Why is everybody hammering at me about podcasts? I mean, I listen to podcasts, Pod Save America, but okay, entertainment side, what am I missing?
Yeah, because like there's real stories going on there now, and I think it's really great that you're stepping into that field because huge actors like John Boyega, I was listening to one
Yeah.
like a few months ago. He did one for, there's a bunch of different production companies for audio stories
Mm-hmm.
nowadays, but they're really, the production values really rising for that, which is odd to me because it, like you said earlier too, it's like we're going back to the 30s and like 20s with all these radio dramas, which is very interesting.
Cool. It's really cool. And I know they're using it again, they use everything as a lower priced incubator for maybe this will become a franchise. I really only care about each thing being the best of what it is. I don't care if the comics become something else. In some cases I don't think they should. They're only suited to being a comic. I don't care if um, something I think plays really well as an audio serial becomes anything else, but I know the rest of the world does. Um, but the big goal is, can we crack this to be a must hear? Can we make this something that becomes irresistible, that somebody's just got to hear the next episode?
So how are you finding those kind of writers for these audio dramas? Are they the writers you've been working with on the comic series, or are they completely new people who have created audio dramas before?
Both.
Both. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting because it's a whole. It's very different since there's no visuals. You have to very. You have to. It's tricky as a writer, but it's very interesting. It's a whole new landscape. Like, because comics seems a much easier transition, like comics to film or film to comics, since you still have that visual medium. But with this, you don't have that at all. So it's tricky as a writer. Like, I'm a writer as well, and it's a whole new way you have to think for this.
They found that they were telling me at Realm that they had their best luck with playwrights. And so I found that kind of interesting. And the irony is one of the guys who writes a bunch of stuff for us also happens to be an award-winning playwright in London. And I thought, okay, hey Mike, let's see what you can do with this. And he just is batting it out of the park on one.
Wow.
Yeah, because I thought, all right, you want a playwright? I got a playwright. You know?
Yeah, that's awesome that you've had such a long career. So you have all these connections already. You can just reach out to this person, and it sounds like he's making something great. And
Oh, yeah.
hopefully it's a must hear, like you said.
Oh, I think it will be because Realm, Realm had the kernel of an idea but wasn't sure how to do it. And I went, I think we can do this. I think I know somebody to crack this, because I bring him in on some of the things I start up and have the concept for, and write an outline and character pitch for, and then he dives in and saves the day.
So he really fleshes it out. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, there, like you said, May 11th, right? For a lot more news on all your audio stuff. So yeah, I'm looking, that's just less than a week away. So looking forward to more on that. But hey, and like you said, they're going to be mostly all original stories. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I love the original stories that that everyone tells, but especially all the stories that John has told throughout the years and you've touched as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So one of my last questions is, after being in the entertainment industry for as long as you have, what motivates you to get up every morning? Because you've done so much. What makes you still motivated to continue what you do?
Curiosity, and I love what I do. Not to mention that it's always nice to check that I'm not dead yet. But I think artists don't really conceive of the notion of not creating anymore. That's not something we do. We're not like insurance salesmen who can't wait to get rid of their briefcase. We can't wait for the next idea and how to implement it. So I get real excited when somebody presents something new to me where I kind of go, huh, I've never done that before. What a cool thing to try. I have no clue how this works. But wouldn't it be crazy to take what I do know and see if it works in that format? So it's really more a why not.
Exactly, because you've found your passion at such a young age, and that's awesome that you did, because so many people don't, and that's why you really can't think of any reason why not to, because you love what you do and you want to keep doing it. And I admire that as a filmmaker as well. That's awesome. So other than your podcast, what else could your fans and everyone else, what are you working on now, and what are we going to see next? Is it mostly just the podcast that you're really in deep in right now? Is there anything else you're working on?
We have a series that's at a studio on a network right now that's going through some final revisions to see if it hits its stride and goes public. So of course you realize everything we work on never gets announced until till there's an official thing. But there is a series. There's a feature being shopped. It's in the in-between stage where there's a studio, but studios no longer do anything themselves. There's the audio stuff, and there's a possibly real interesting animation collaboration.
Awesome. You've your hands in so many different stuff right now. It's crazy how much you're doing. But yeah, a few years ago I heard that, I don't know if it's the same series that you're talking about, but at Sci-Fi you had a series that didn't really happen. But I was really excited for that. So hopefully, I don't know if that's the same thing that you're talking about now, but hopefully
somewhere else.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see it someday. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Now there's you never know with anything. You kind of become a Starbucks conversation if you talk about it, and it's not already being filmed.
Yeah.
Because it's just not real until so many layers fall into place and everybody one day says go, and you go, really? Really? Because I kind of thought we were all done with that. And they kind of go, no. And all right. So, it's like we have two features where I'm sitting there going, is everybody serious, or are we just going to do deals forever, or are we going to go? So I've found in this last 10 years environment, it's better to just not sweat the small stuff and go, ready when you are, let me know.
Yeah. And do you think that's changed like in the last 20 years?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
How so? How do you think?
They've got no balls. I don't know. They don't want to be wrong. Okay. One of the worst things in life is to be ruled by fear. And in this corporate environment, the old studio heads were gamblers, and they also had diversified portfolios of films. They had their tent poles, they had their that were big extravaganzas. They spent their money on. They had their middle of the road staples, and they each were known for different things. You had your RKO westerns, you had your Gold LeMay stuff over at MGM, all of that kind of thing. You had monster movies over at Universal. And then they had each studio had a little fund for their dares that they just thought were cool movies that might never make any money, but they thought were cool to do. They gave up the diversified portfolio thing, and they all only want the sure bet, IP attached franchises. And that's kind of boring. So the only place that's really places that are doing anything innovative are the streamers. And so that's why Netflix is showing such strength. Amazon is showing such strength. It's going to be interesting to see what happens at Apple and Apple Plus right now. Disney has locked in the vault. They've got so much of a library that they're, I think, going to be the next place that shows whether they've got the guts to venture deeper.
Yeah, especially after they bought Fox, they have all that vault even grew.
Yeah, and those were really smart investments because they've got everything they can pull from for their viewing streaming audience. So, in between, there's a million channels, and who knows what they're really going to wind up with and what everyone's subscribing to. At the end of the day, you're not going to have that many, because who wants to spend that kind of money with every single subscriber service? But exactly. I think that some of those are going to wind up eating the smaller competitors and folding them in. But it's interesting to watch right now because a lot of these executive offices have changed during the COVID down period. And interesting to see what they're on the hunt for, having watched what people all ate up during the lockdown. But the more daring moves are being made at the streamers.
Yeah, and it seems like the films that you like to create are very daring as well. So that may be a pair in the future, and I'd love to see it if that ever happens. With you maybe teaming up with a streamer to get the. You've mentioned
Oh
like
yeah,
two films that are kind of development hell right now. Maybe they could
absolutely.
help you out with that. I'd love to see that.
I'm fully willing to act as incredibly cute and amenable as I possibly can to Netflix. You know, where everybody else is lined up with gift baskets. Yeah.
Exactly. And my last question for you, Sandy, and I appreciate all your time that you've given us so far, but what advice would you give to anyone who's currently an aspiring film producer? How could they improve their craft, and how can you they find their first gig? You found so many throughout your career, and you became what you wanted to be, a large creative in the industry. So how could someone nowadays try to follow in your footsteps?
No one's going to like my advice, especially parents. You know, don't be so ambitious. Go through what, go through every, do your best at whatever job it is. Yes, learn to work the Xerox machine, the coffee maker, and walk the dog. Um, Listen, be open to anything. Whatever you did a great job at, whatever level you were on, is going to lead to being hired again. The more people that hire you know your name, you're going to get your next gig. But you want to learn everything from the ground up. If you start at the top, you're not informed enough to do anything. So volunteer for every student film, volunteer for every, you know, low budget film that needs free crew, haul cable, run for coffee, help age wardrobe, everything that builds your knowledge and lets people see that you're a worker. Because that's how the next door opens. And that's how you get your next inspiration. Um, I volunteered on more films, did more dirt work, got chased through the botanical gardens at UCLA in more student films, um, you know, help paint puppets, anything to just be with your comrades as they rise. You know, the people that all slept on the couch of the one house everybody got together all went on to become the executive producers and stuff of the future. There is no wasted effort. So I would say that's the best way to go.
So can continue that hustle and keep take open every door that's given to you and
Yeah.
jump through it.
What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to have a lousy 2 weeks or a lousy week, or one night's really going to suck and you don't get fed. I mean, so, you
You
know,
learn what not to do when you are a producer on those crappy projects.
yeah. And if you fail, you have an 8 by 10 glossy of what you did wrong. Always learn from your failures.
Thanks so much, Sandy King Carpenter. I appreciate all of you, all the time you've given us today, all the work you've given us in the past, and I look forward to all the work you're going to give us in the future.
Thank you.
And yeah, have a great day, and everyone, thank you, and that's it.